Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram. Thank you very much for joining me over the next hour as we discuss a matter of topical interest. We all recall the days prior to the 2015 when we heard corruption as the byword. Pradoville 2, drug purchases, Queen's Atlantic, operations of the Ministry of Housing, the Geology and Mines Commission with Minister Robert Persaud, the Baishan Lin with Minister Robert Persaud. We thought then that corruption would be a thing of the past. When the PNC, the APNU plus the AFC, in its action program for the first 100 days, promised Guyana that there would be an establishment of an investigative commission on corruption. Tonight, as we consider the extent to which the APNU plus AFC has stuck to its manifesto program, we also look at whether corruption has indeed been brought to an end or whether it has now taken on a different face. To discuss the topic with me this evening are two persons with whom I had the privilege and the honor to sit at various fora to discuss some of these matters. Ramin Gaskin, for a while we had a television program running, and Anand Goolsarran, with whom on many occasions with the Alliance for Change, the AFC, we discussed corruption and budget measures. So gentlemen, Ramin Gaskin and Anand Goolsarran, welcome to Plain Talk.
Thank you for having me.
And Anand, welcome back to Guyana. Last week I welcomed Ramon Gaskin. Seems that only I stay around here in this long, hot summer.
And you're capable of blazing the trail in our absence.
Yeah.
I need company. This establishment of an investigative commission on corruption, that was a promise made by the APNU plus CFC for the first 100 days. Have they kept that promise?
You're asking me?
Both of you?
Oh, well, I could start with me. No, the answer to that question is no. There's been no investigative commission promised there the first 100 days, as far as I'm aware, as promised. And I'm also not aware that this present government has been aggressively or even moderately pursuing corruption in the system, in the state, in the country. So there's been no war on corruption in this place at all. And
let me ask you before you go on, why do you think, is this just an oversight? Have they backpedaled? Or would it be an embarrassment if they were to do anything like this?
Oh, they will say to you, they will say to you they are doing it. They will say
They've
to you,
established an
they
investigative
haven't
commission.
established that
Well,
thing.
no, that's what it
but
is.
they promised. But they will tell you that they are dealing with corruption. They're fighting corruption with the Soko and the Sahara. They will tell you that. But they haven't established that thing that they promised. What they will tell you that they've inherited certain other agencies which they're using to fight corruption. The fact of the matter is that they're not fighting corruption. That's to begin with. And as a general rule, corruption is in the country, in the private sector, is in the state sector. We must remember that. Correct. Corruption is pervasive. It's in all the regions, all over the country, all the municipalities.
Are we going to get there?
Agencies.
I'm dealing with this
but
particular question.
They're not fighting corruption. They have not set up the agency to fight it.
Anand, you agree with Raymond that they have not, the government has not done so.
Right,
And
I
would you
agree.
like to express an opinion as to why you
Yeah.
think they haven't done it?
Well, first, they won the election on the corruption front. We all know that because corruption was a big issue in the run-up to the 2015 election, and I think they won the election on that. And one would have expected that they would have taken concrete measures like passing anti-corruption legislation and things like that. But I'm somewhat disappointed in the sense that having won the election, and on that front they were lukewarm about trying to fight corruption, because this commission would have been a very important commission to investigate past corrupt behavior, and maybe present and so on. But as Ramon said, the excuse might be one in which, well, they depend on Sarah and Soku. But I don't think that's a substitute to what they have agreed to in this manifesto.
Could it have been an oversight? And let me, in asking that question, I want to provide some background information. On the third anniversary, the government, through its agencies, published this very substantial statement showing over 200 things that they have done. They've gone through this. So it must have been a deliberate action on their part, not to establish this.
Yeah, I think they're conscious that they have made that commitment, but haven't gotten into power. They backpedal. They have backpedaled for whatever reason.
Well, what reason do you think it is?
Well, there's always this tendency in old government, new government. Well, the old government did certain things, and we're now in power. Maybe we would it would work against us then if we were to have an investigative commission. Then it might very well work against us. That's how I rationalize it. So therefore, let's play it low.
So it's conscious. It's a conscious decision. They
They didn't do that commission, but they will tell you that they have been fighting corruption. They've had all these forensic audits done, and they're looking at it. They tried to prosecute some people before that didn't work out, and they will tell you they're working on it. They're doing it. They didn't do that particular commission, but they'll tell you they're fighting corruption with the forensic audits and the SOCO and the SARA. That's what they will tell you.
I think they paid lukewarm attention to all the results of the forensic audits.
That's correct.
It's to me there was no degree of seriousness when they decided to do to act on the results.
Yeah, they're not serious about it.
So the 40 forensic audits were done, and the findings and recommendations were there.
And they've done nothing.
They have not enthusiastically embraced the recommendations.
In fairness and in the interest of balance, we have had the public procurement set up, and this was. Anand, you were very.
I would like to comment on that.
Now, and okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
The whole idea of the procurement commission, 5 members. The idea was not to politicize the process. You were supposed to have 5 independent, competent, professionally, technically qualified people too. All right.
They will probably say that they are the members of the commission. So be careful. Go on.
Right, but the point is the whole process was hijacked politically, in the sense that you have the Public Accounts Committee, and so 3 from this political party and 2 from the other political. It was politicized.
From day one.
People, some of them might have some degree of technical competence, but the mere fact that the political process intervened to have the members appointed. I would have thought that maybe they would have invited applications out there in the public and shortlisting and things like that.
They invited applications for the Chancellor and Chief Justice, which is unheard of, unprecedented.
They had applications for that,
but not for this.
That's correct. They chose this from the 2 parties.
Yeah.
But they left the legislation entirely in place, and you have the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board and the regional bodies doing just as they wish.
That's correct. And what they used to do in the past, they continue to do. Even with this constitutional body in place here now.
And they've done it with a viciousness and a nastiness.
And this thing is costing a lot of money. This new 5-person board setup, it's costing a lot of money, about $1 million per person per month. It's costing a lot of money. They've not been effective at all in this area at all. We've seen it recently with a lot of other procurement shenanigans going on all the time.
I have seen contracts for some reason taken away from one person, even though the person made a valid submission, and there was nothing. It is almost brute force. So even as we give credit for the establishment of the Procurement Commission with all its deficiencies, full-time, and there is no what full-time work.
There's
you have
nothing
to find?
there. They're not doing anything.
It is so
they're not
inane.
There's
There's no work to do.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
You pay them as full-time.
They do nothing. It costs millions of dollars.
I don't know if the public, members of the public, are aware that these people are there ostensibly full-time. What are you going to do full-time? A commission is an oversight body, not an executive body.
An oversight.
It's someone does not have the brains to understand that.
It's an oversight
And they
body.
do nothing.
Are we that short of brains in this country?
They've done nothing
They've
since
issued
they're
two
there.
reports, and the first one I faulted tremendously. The one on the Ministry of Health.
Yes, yes.
I faulted.
That's on the sole
tremendously.
sourcing there, the sole sourcing thing there.
Was it the 604 million?
Yeah.
And then there was a second report
800
on
million.
the
bridge?
feasibility study. That's all. Now
For the
they're
bridge.
required to produce an annual report. This is 2 years finished. No annual report to Parliament as yet.
No. They're not doing anything. They're just collecting money
Now,
for doing nothing.
is this then lip service,
Lip
and
service.
hypocrisy?
Lip
Yeah,
service,
yeah.
yes.
And dishonesty. Because you have this thing set up there, they do nothing, it costs the taxpayers a lot of money and nothing happens.
Now, all three of us took part actively, openly, and fairly aggressively in terms of what we call PPP corruption. What I certainly still hold as PPP corruption. Does the government's failure and its own record, which I hope we can come to just now, but does its failure diminish the outrage that is necessary of the kind of corruption that preceded it coming into power?
Well, the PPP, from the little I know, especially since the death of Chedi Jagan, and the people he had wanted to take over from him, they're extremely corrupt, and they all got rich while in office, and nothing has been done about it.
No, but my question is the lack of action by this government against the PPP and the serious and credible allegations of corruption. Don't those things diminish the seriousness?
Of course, it does. It does. It does. My own feeling is that with this narrow margin of victory, less than 5,000 votes, I think the politicians are thinking, well, come 2020, nobody knows what's going to happen. And if I'm a minister, I'm not saying I will do it. And there's uncertainty of, well, whether I will have continuity come 2020. There is that temptation. And I believe that's something of a human nature. And to what extent you can be tempted, it's another matter. And many people will be tempted to do certain things. And
they do it.
But listen, we are in an era when we hear words like unbribable, where we had big salary increases so that ministers don't have to take bribe. We make all I see another whole raft of money changes to the money laundering legislation. Every few months you're getting this. It's almost becoming farcical.
It is. I don't know if there have been any prosecutions on that since that legislation was introduced on the money laundering, any of it yet?
I don't think so.
No.
There might have been some woman bringing in some money some time ago at the airport.
Yeah,
There was a single incident.
Yeah, but it's laundering. Is
Yes.
it laundering? Was she laundering or not? There's a lot of that still going
It's
on.
just failing to disclose.
Failing to disclose. That's not laundering. That's failing to disclose.
Now,
But that's still going on.
Now, so we know the PPP's corruption appears to be getting swept under the carpet or receding in the background.
With the passage of time, but people here know. They know and they know and they remember the corruption of the PPP.
All
Even
right.
with the passage of time and the failure to prosecute them. People know the regime was corrupt.
All
And
right.
as simple as that. And they still know that.
What about the APNU AFC record on corruption? Now, you recall, immediately the party came into power, you had public fundraising for an investiture. Any accountability? Because
No.
one side of the coin is corruption, another side is accountability.
Of course.
We had millions and millions of dollars being raised for the president's, whatever it was, at the Providence Stadium. We never heard.
No.
And that Durban Park, that
Durban Jubilee Park.
Well, I was going to get there, but,
Yeah.
but surely the president, who by all accounts is very strict when it comes to matters of integrity, would have wanted to ensure that anything associated with him and as closely associated with him like his own, I don't think, I can't remember what his word was, investiture.
Inauguration, whatever.
Yeah, inauguration. Thank you, Anand. That he would want to make sure that there is proper accountability.
I don't think there has been any, and even in the president's program of bicycle and boat and all the nonsense, I don't think there's any record keeping of all these gifts from business people and so on for all these boats and buses and bicycles and whatever. I don't think this government keeps proper records of all of these gifts given to the government or to the president or to whom for the communities. I'm not aware of that. I don't know in the books of, you're an accountant. I don't know in the
Look
books.
an Auditor General here, man.
Yeah, he's an
No
auditor.
bother with the accountant.
I don't know in the books of Guyana you have all this thing recorded, all these
You have to
bicycle
have
and
them
books
recorded.
and boats.
There is a provision in the law.
You have to record it.
all
And the
gifts.
Auditor General's report, he reported it in his annual report.
And the president cannot treat it as though it's his personal.
But the Auditor General didn't put it in his annual report. How many boats and bicycles and so they got and buses? He didn't put it.
There's a requirement of the law. All gifts received by government agencies must be valued and recorded.
not done. It's
and
not
brought to
done.
account in the public accounts of
This
the
not done.
encouragement of people giving gifts
Gifts,
to,
yeah.
to political entities.
And to the Guyana Police Force, every year they have this thing where they give policemen gifts and thing, and
All of
they
that should be
solicit
recorded in
they
public.
solicit
No, it's not
donations.
recording. Should it happen?
At all. Should it happen
That's
at
the
all?
issue. It
That the
ought
Guyana
not-
Police Force collecting money
Oh,
from
well,
business people
no,
to
no,
give
that-
as
that's-
gifts to
that-
policemen. It's
And
all
by-
ridiculous.
By the same token, the president should not be doing it either.
That's correct.
You receive gift officially from
Heads of state.
Yeah.
Right. Or from friendly nations, and
That's right.
or
Every
if
year
if you receive from a business
The
organization, it
Guyana
must be made
Police
public.
Force raises money from businessmen for
Now-
their annual gift giving what they have.
Now you've started talking about the Durban Park.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned Pradoville too. Both you and I were involved in Pradoville too, and the audit. The amount of money involved in Pradoville too was less than the money involved in
Jubilee
Durban Park.
Mm.
Durban Park.
Mhm.
So is that the APNU AFC's Pradoville too, in terms of corruption?
Yeah.
It's just a continuation of the corruption.
We
from
don't
the
know the
PNC.
extent because we don't know the figures.
No, they
and
said it was over $1 billion. They said that.
well,
It's a continuation
Well, they
of the
failed the first
corruption.
test.
Yeah.
That's the first test. That's the first test. That's the first test as to how serious they are with corruption, and they failed.
Mhm.
That was the first one, I would say.
And subsequent tests they failed too.
yeah.
Well,
sole sourcing and
Yeah.
the Ministry
But
of Health and all
that
that.
was its starting, that was the first one.
Mhm.
They failed.
But I'm trying to put some numbers on this because look, Pradoville 2 and the photographs in the Kaichor News, they were almost iconic in a negative way.
Mm.
The government has got away with this Durban Park, which is more money involved,
yeah.
and
No.
it seems almost as though there's no even recognition. You said just now, Raymond, that the PPP's corruption is still in people's psyche.
Yeah, people know
What
about it.
what about Durban Park? It is not.
People know this government is corrupt too. You don't think people out there know this? There's a small society, and a lot of people know a lot of things. They're not necessarily in the newspapers. They know that there's corruption in this place. There's corruption in this place from top to bottom. From the lowliest constable on the beat right up to the top. There's corruption all over, in all the regions, all the ministries, all the agencies. And in the private sector too. I'm not leaving out when I talk about corruption, I'm talking about the private sector. There's a lot of corruption
because it
inside
always
there.
involves two sides.
Yeah, but there's a lot of corruption inside the private sector too. And everybody knows this,
Except
that the
you
place
can
corrupt.
say, in the case of Pradoville too, there was politicians and politicians.
You say yes.
Politicians and the state.
Yeah. The difference between Durban Park and Pradoville 2, I would say that in the Durban, there seems to be a lot of wastage of money and perhaps money start running off.
Yeah.
But Pradoville 2, it's about personal interest.
Personal
you know.
benefit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
More than Jubilee Park. Personal benefit.
Yeah.
Well,
You
we
see
don't
there.
know. You don't know that, do you?
Well, the man living in the house, the man got the house, they living inside.
You don't know that there was no personal benefit with,
No.
with Durban Park.
Yeah, but
you
there's,
don't know that.
I don't
We
know
don't
that, but it's
It
not
is highly possible, though.
not as pronounced as it is
Well,
in Pradoville.
is it if you were to take dollar value? Durban Park is substantially larger.
Yes.
It's in a particular way. Pradoville 2 is almost sickening.
Almost what?
Sickening. It's
yeah.
it's yes, emotional. It strikes you as so improper. But when we start thinking that there are qualitative differences between corruption A and corruption B, we're going down a very dangerous road. And as you said, that was the first one. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And what has happened? Let's talk about some of those. You've written about some of the Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
That drug bond.
The drug bond.
How could you get? Raymond, tell us about the drug bond story.
The drug bond, from what the most recent information in the drug bond, which I understand has been given up now, is that the owner there collected $314 million on a $25 million.
But that's only part of the thing.
It's a corrupt transaction.
What's the first part?
The
Government wants to use something.
Yes.
It lends somebody money to buy the something,
and to rent it back to
and
them.
then to rent it back at a prohibitive sum of money.
150 million a year, I think, Guyana dollars rent, something like that. Yes, that's what happened there.
That's 2 months capital payment on that building. I mean, now, again,
Before you go
compare that.
a minister of this government who knows how to place a value on rented property says that the value of that bond, the real rental value, was like 1.8 million, as against 12.5.
Was that David Patterson? Because you kind of narrowed it down. Who knows about rental value? David Patterson is a quantity surveyor. He's in that kind of business.
Yeah.
So it is David Patterson.
I won't call him.
No. But why not if a minister? Let's say it. I mean, he always has the right, and this is an open right.
To
Coming on this
defend
program,
himself,
I said,
himself.
this is not true. It would be interesting, in my view. David Patterson had a duty to advise cabinet that this transaction does not make economic sense, does not, in his professional judgment, make sense, that you cannot pay that kind of rent. No investment in real estate pays for itself in 2 months, Anand. None.
I know.
No, well, I like
Well,
how
the question is whether he had a right to advise the president and all of it.
They have a duty.
The president also has a duty.
of course.
To get to the bottom of this thing. It's been reported and complained about for a long time. And he has a duty too. He's head of state, he's head of cabinet to see what's going on here and see what could be done about
and
it.
I want to put this thing again in a comparative sense. If you look at that drug bond, it's as bad as several of the drug purchases
Yeah,
the
yeah.
PPP engaged in.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
So
I don't see it as comparing these two. I see the second one as a continuation of the wickedness of the first. I see it as a continuum rather than trying to compare two separate things. I don't see it as two separate things. I see it as a continuation of wickedness.
But Raymond,
That's how I see it.
the present government said we are different.
they did
So
say
they invite that comparison. They did not say we are a continuation. They
Well,
said we are different. We
they
are
w-
setting different standards.
But when I look at it, I see it as a when I look at it, I see it as a
No,
continuation.
you may see it as that, but
But it is a continuation. It is a continuation of the corruption of the previous regime. So I don't
So-
see it as two separate entities, two separate separate items. It's a continuation.
You see, when we, in my view, when we keep saying that, look, this is just the PPP continuing, we almost diminishing the high standards that you expect.
We're not diminishing it. We're proving something. It's not diminishing nothing.
What's it proving?
The proof is that this corruption here has been going on from this time,
But
and
what
it
about
continues uninterruptedly. That's what we're proving. That this and is likely to continue in the foreseeable future if we can't and don't stop it.
Is that the way you see it?
That's how
Mr.
I
Bushra?
see it.
No, we understand that's how you see it.
That's how I see it.
I appreciate what you say, but as I said, if a new government comes into office on the corruption issue, one would expect a complete and total break from what the previous government has said.
They've said that.
They have said that, and the fact that there are allegations of corrupt behavior,
Allegations?
allegations and
Evidence.
evidence and so on. It strikes me, as something very disappointing on the part of the new administration.
Before
Not new
the new administration even came into power, you had the question of a lot of private sector money going there for the campaigning. Even before they won, or whoever won and who lost. So it's been there from even prior to their coming into power. Because we don't have in this country, and these politicians, they ain't going to do it, to have campaign finance laws here.
Yeah,
So you have the corruption starting even before you get elected. There's
on
corruption
page
there. You
16,
talk about it a lot of times.
On page 16
Uh-huh.
of the
Manifesto.
Manifesto Elections 2015 of the APNU plus AFC, there's an entire column and another piece on fighting corruption
Yeah, yes.
and how they will appoint this group of experts to undertake all these contracts,
Oh, yeah.
investigate this,
Oh, yes.
contracts. They've done these things.
No.
In fact, in many of these, you can take the International Airport Expansion Project and say, look, and that's where the continuation.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
continuation to me is when you take the same thing.
Yeah, you keep running with it. Yeah.
But we have that one at Durban Park is a new corruption.
That's a new corruption.
That one is
That's
a new one.
corruption.
So the contract and financing arrangements for the Marriott Hotel, this talk about, we go sell Marriott.
Yeah, that's a continuation because they continue.
Continuation.
Yes,
You
the
know,
continuation
in my
of the
report, I said that within 1 year, if you don't sell Marriott, you will find yourself in a situation where you'll be unable to pay the debt.
thing. The Ministry of Finance is servicing that there.
And I said,
They
dispose
can't
of
dispose of
Marriott
it and recover your capital and get it. Yeah, dispose of it and recover your capital and come out of the business. Yes, they wouldn't do it though. They wouldn't do it.
So we had Durban Park, We then have the one that was so sickening,
604 million drugs.
the drugs.
The sole sourcing.
This sole sourcing, a
Sourcing.
man who, out of the blues,
No, that's the second one. The first one was Answer. This is
Answer.
Oh, yes.
the New York guy.
Yes.
Yes.
New York
was
guy.
800 million, and this one is 367 million.
Yeah.
Yes. The continuation
don't
of
know.
the same lawlessness that we had in the
Or
ministry. Yeah.
HGM guy.
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah, that-
HGM guy.
and, you know, these things don't come out of the blue.
No, no, no.
As people make them, they are political hands at work.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
the
of
reality.
course, yes. Mhm.
And what, for all his strict value systems, President Granger is allowing this administration to be tarnished by dishonesty and corruption.
And one can say he's not doing anything about it. Seriously.
Because lots of these people are within cabinet. Things don't happen.
Mhm.
Nothing happens in a big way in this country without cabinet
Mhm.
being involved or some top politician being involved. Is that your experience, Mr. Goolsarran?
Yes, yes.
The president knows all these things, and
You
if
know-
he doesn't know, he can find out if he wanted to know. If he wanted to know, he can find out.
As you were talking, I play a lot. I used to play a lot of cricket, and I remember at our cricket club there was a third class team, and the third class skipper would go out and say, "Boys, I'm here to lead you out. Enjoy yourself, scatter.
Mhm.
And when the game is over, I'll take you back in." And as you talk, I keep remembering.
Yeah.
It is not enough to appoint ministers of the government
Mhm.
and say, "Well, I've appointed you.
Mhm.
Do whatever you have to do as a minister.
Mhm.
Only if you have a problem, you must come and see me." Also, my take, if I'm a leader, I must cut the path. I must provide a sense of direction for all my ministers. They have to.
That's a constitutional duty.
You say,
Yeah.
Ask Gaskin,
And,
the chief executive is the
Yeah, but-
president.
Yeah, but I see that as absent in this whole arrangement.
That's correct.
Ministers are doing whatever
So we have corruption, we have incompetence, we have lack of leadership,
Yes.
and lack of
Well-
control.
That's what you have. Yeah.
And those things are the recipe for corruption.
Exactly.
And they reinforce it. They reinforce the corruption.
So we had these two drug awards, we had the drug bond. Now, taxpayers pay for those things. This drug bond that cost 25 million at the most, and you pay out 300 how many million dollars for it?
314, the newspaper reported.
314 plus you give a loan of 25 million, which you got back.
Yes, I
Look
guess.
what it has cost this country.
Oh, corruption
Since-
is costing the country a lot.
Since
Cost the
Clive
country a lot.
Thomas knew how much corruption was costing under the PPP administration. Apparently, he ceased to know anything now.
Corruption costs a lot in this country.
But tell me
If
something,
you would
Anand.
if you could quantify it and add it up, it's a very large
You know
amount.
what?
Tell me something. Yeah, go on.
You know what bothers me? A minister of the government can step out of his or her area of responsibility, which has to do with policy, setting policy, and go and become operational and do things. And then our constitution, our laws, we are helpless.
That's where the continuation is,
Right.
because it has always been that
And
way.
the ministers running things here.
Yeah,
In
the-
the good
the-
old days, the permanent secretaries did.
Right.
Yeah.
And the point is that a minister might be involved in corrupt behavior, and our constitutional law says he or she is immune from prosecution.
Yes.
This must be the only country in the world where you can't take a minister of the government to court on because of corruption.
Well, I don't know that you can't. I don't think you. I think you can.
Well,
I think what we have, because you have the kind of corruption in the police force
For
as well.
That's correct.
And the political
in every
control.
in every institution you have this thing.
Which one of them has the spine and the courage
And the integrity
and integrity
to do it.
to do it?
That's the question.
Surely, some of these ministers, that business of the lending of the $25 million to buy the building, under what law, under what financial regulation Anand.
There's none.
There's none.
There's none. I can tell you that.
Now, nobody was fired for this. You move a minister.
Well, under what authority is the entire Exxon bonus put in the Bank of America? The so-called 18 million sign-in bonus. It's in the Bank of America, sitting there, we're told, earning interest, and when you calculate it, the interest is not there. Under what authority?
No.
Take all this 18 million US and put it in the Bank of America?
but we're talking about a particular, this corrupt transaction.
You're talking about ministers. We're talking about ministers doing all these things on their own, too. Ministers can do that.
Where is the president
In all of this.
in all of this?
I'll go back to my cricket team.
Send them and do what they want.
Scatter, enjoy yourself.
Now, then we have had a situation where the Demerara Harbour Bridge lends some private business entity over $400 million.
The paper reported that, yes.
The Demerara Harbour Bridge lend some entity?
Yes. And nobody is sanctioned.
I haven't heard about that one.
Yes, it's reported in the media.
Harbour Bridge lend.
Yes.
On what
Nobody is sanctioned.
And the Harbour Bridge is involved now in something with the Minister Patterson again on sole sourcing for the design for the new bridge, which is another problem they're looking at. I think $146 million or something paid out to some European company to come in. Yes.
And when you read that report, you wonder, is this really an international firm? So we're accumulating, this government in a short period of time is accumulating a serious series of corrupt practices.
And bear in mind, Chris, we are comparing 23 years with 3 years.
Yes. Well, as Ramin would say, you just continue. But some of them some of them
continue.
continue. Yes.
This
Where
year.
will it go in another few years?
That's the point. But I wouldn't say 23 years. I think after Cherry Jagan died.
Then the people
So it's
took
from
over there.
97 to...
Onwards, after Janet
15.
died.
18 years.
After
18
Janet.
years. What we saw in 18 years, and we condemned, we criticized, we fought for change. And then 3 years down the road...
I think after Janet died, all the floodgates were open for corruption.
Well, she started by appointing.
No, I don't know if she's... The
Well,
appointment...
she encouraged, I don't know.
She was told by the Americans who to appoint.
She had a misplaced belief.
Yeah. No, they told her who to appoint. That's my understanding
Now,
of it.
this reprehensible, dangerous, unreasonable, unbelievable petroleum agreement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you consider that a question of incompetence or corruption?
Certainly it's not incompetence. Certainly it's not incompetence.
Why do you say that? Why do you say it's not incompetence?
Because we've got our natural resources on the ground. They inherited an agreement with Exxon for exploration, and then the next stage was development, because around 2015 it was announced, and the timing of that announcement is another issue. It announced that we find oil. I mean, whose oil is it? Are you not going to...
The legislation is quite clear as to whose oil it is. Tell them, Ramon.
Yeah, the oil belongs to Guyana.
It belongs to the state.
All the ownership is vested.
Wherever located.
It's vested in the state.
You guys probably have big pieces of real estate.
Yeah.
If you find petroleum resources on your land, don't think it belongs to you.
It's vested in the state.
It's vested in the state.
My understanding in Texas is different.
The U.S. is different.
Yeah.
The U.S. is different.
No, I agree. It belongs to the state.
No, but that agreement, the second agreement, which was entered into after the thing had been found.
Yeah.
And
sure.
that's a continuation.
You had the first agreement in 1999 signed by Janet Jagan as president and Minister of Petroleum, she says she was. At that time, it wasn't found. But with the Trotman agreement now, it had been found. And we had an opportunity to get a better deal now. And we didn't do it because of incompetence. And also, I would say, I would not rule out corruption there at all in that. I wouldn't rule it out.
You know,
if you read about ExxonMobil, how they operate throughout the world, and especially in the third world, I will not rule it out. That is corruption plus incompetence in our dealings with ExxonMobil now.
let's clear this up. I think Anand mentioned just now that we had the 1999 agreement. Now, these are two. Let me put this question this way. If you have Agreement 1 and you subsequently find, forget change circumstances, you subsequently find, you know what? In Agreement 1, we made some legal mistakes. What do you do in Agreement 2?
Well, the opposite is correct.
What did they do in Agreement 2? They signed a bridging deed that says everything, we're bringing over everything from 2000, from the 1990s.
And that is not disclosed as yet. That bridging deed hasn't been disclosed.
Still has not been disclosed.
Yeah.
A request has been made. I'm aware of a request having been made to the new minister responsible for petroleum, and he has.
And in all of this, you give them a new license, a new exploration license in the 2015. And while you're doing that, you give them a new one too.
But Raymond, tell me something.
They haven't had one for 16 years, where the agreement says the law said you could only have something for 10 years, I think, at 6 months. They already had it for 16 years, and you give them a new one.
Well, they will tell you that there was a force majeure issue, though you will point out, I know you will, force majeure was with Suriname, not with Venezuela.
Right. And they had all the blocks
from Suriname
to Venezuela. So they cannot use that problem up there to say they couldn't do work. No, that's not true. And at the time, do we know at the time that they had applied for this force majeure? Did we know anything about it all this time? Only in 16 years later, you're hearing about the 1999 thing. 16 years.
No, that's not quite true.
When first we heard about 1999?
That's not quite true.
Around 2008,
hold on.
Something
No.
2001?
No.
Eight.
If we were more alert, we would have realized that ESSO Exploration and Production Guyana Limited had been filing annual returns, including audited financial statements. Significantly, certain years are missing.
What?
And they did point out, they did write in their annual report, in the financial statements, that they had force majeure, and therefore the suspension of the clock. So we need to put that into context.
And who grants that? Who does all that? The minister.
The minister.
The minister is, do you be aware of all of that? The minister ever granted any of that and announced anything?
That is something Robert Persaud, who has suddenly become this big consultant in oil and gas and saying, y'all leave the AP and UFC alone. He would have had some kind of hand in that.
Well, 09, that expired, that 10-year thing on 09 from 1999. So who was the minister in 09 to have granted that further extensions? I don't know.
But just coming back to this, you raise a question whether it's incompetence
Or corruption, or both.
Or both. What I've been reading is that the overriding consideration in relation to this agreement that was signed had to do with national security, the body issued Venezuela. Now, my take on that is that since 1899 we've been living with this body issue. How suddenly that has become so serious that you're willing to sell your birthright just to have some American presence between Venezuela and Guyana to act as a buffer in the event you have some aggression. How suddenly that becomes an issue with the result that you compromise everything that you ought to stand for in the interest of the nation. And talking about royalty and talking about profit sharing.
Raymond?
You know.
Yeah, I don't buy that because of national security considerations, you couldn't get a better deal and you couldn't get more than 1% or 2%. I don't buy any of it. They're completely separate issues.
Not only are they completely separate issues, I know you're aware, and But recently, the press officer for the Ministry of Natural Resources publicly said that, look, we had one objective and one objective only: oil by 2020.
I was about to come to that too.
So it had nothing to do with security.
That's correct.
It's about politics.
Yeah.
We messed up the entire country because of politics, and we continue to do it.
Since the 99 agreement.
Yes.
Let me comment
Both
on that.
agreements. Both agreements.
So initially we thought it was the national security issue when you listen to people like Carl Greenwich and even
No,
President Granger.
Because
initially.
they were dishonest.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't.
Now I've read that the consideration was that
The
Exxon,
sole responsibility.
Exxon, you must produce oil for 2020. And so Exxon said, all right, we'll produce. And therefore, well, sign up here. Sign up, you know. So in other words, the national interest, that is to protect, your natural resources and to make sure that if it's going to be exploited, the nation gets its full share. You have sacrificed
All of that, yes.
in order to think what's going to happen in 2020 when elections are wrong. That's wrong. That's inappropriate. That's unpatriotic.
And that's what happened there.
It's worse. When you sell out a country like that, there's a much stronger term.
Right.
Unpatriotic is not a word.
I don't.
No,
Let's get a more extreme.
no. Unpatriotic is not a word. It's a much more serious word. When you sell out your country's birthright.
Right. Let's find
No.
a word. No?
No. So we have played politics with corruption.
But we still have to come to the point, what can be done about it?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Now that we've identified the problem,
But that's what I'm saying.
we come to the question, rather, we can't keep talking about it all
No,
the time.
but
What is
Raymond-
to be done about
Raymond,
it? Can anything be done about it?
Do you think, is it reasonable to think, and I think you may have answered this question before, that President Granger and colleagues in cabinet don't know of some of the shenanigans that are taking place by some of their colleagues?
I think they all know. I think they all, just so we know, they all must know what's going
The
on.
ordinary person, the
But
ordinary
no,
person in the street knows.
They must know. They're in
cabinet
government.
colleague will not
They
know.
talk to the people all the time. They talk to the movers and shakers. All of them know what's going on in this place, and they know more than all of us. A lot of what they know we haven't heard about yet. Yes.
Do you think the media know enough of what's going on, or do they publish enough of what's going on? Because corruption is something that is hard to prove when you have two people at high levels colluding over something.
Yeah, there's always that risk
A
of
lot of
libel.
it they don't write about.
They know what
Because
They
they
know
can't
what's
prove
going
it.
on.
Yes.
Because they
They
can't
can't
prove it.
and in many cases they don't have the skilled people to write about it and hold to the position.
Well, we're a
The
small
way
country.
when the New York Times and the Washington Post write, they hold to the position. They hold to the position. They have the people who can write and hold to the position. We don't have people like that.
We are a
here.
small country. The government is the single largest procurer of goods and services.
Yes.
So your economic interest is immediately threatened. But there's another interest. If you don't have the liberty of, say, the New York Times, the Sullivan case. Once you're a public official, you can't sue anybody. But in this country, given our jurisprudence, unless you can prove something,
you run the risk.
you run
Yeah,
the
big
risk of defamation and serious economic losses. I don't know if any of us has in fact been threatened with defamation.
Nobody ever threatened me.
I was threatened by DDL.
Nobody ever threatened me.
Have you ever been threatened?
You got a pending case involving me.
No, nobody threatened me.
Remember?
Yes.
And nobody ever wanted to sue me for anything.
So, have you ever been threatened with defamation?
That's one. And when I wrote about the China trip involving Minister Harman, I was nearly sued for that.
When you say you were nearly sued.
Well,
Go
we
on.
met at a European Union function, and he was on the other side. I went, and I shook hands with him, and he started raising his just, man, forget it, that's done, and so sorry.
Well, that wasn't nearly so. I think you need to give him credit. He didn't.
Yeah, he said that. Well, he'll instruct his lawyers to
Oh, he had in fact.
to
No, where is the
withdraw.
libel? Did you publish libel about him? Where is the libel?
I wrote about it against the trip, about that photograph and so on. I had written about it.
But if all these things are so, clean, proper, legal, and valid, why is it though they don't publish these things? Why did we have to hear, for example, that there was going to be a Trinidad-Guyana MOU from Keith Rowley at some political rally in the south of Trinidad? Why did we have to read about the Texas trip by the quintet?
They're all like that. They're all secretive, and they don't like you to know all the facts because of the corruption that they're involved in. They don't want you to know about it. No.
If you have to believe in it before you can display transparency, first of all you have to. But if you have a make belief about the whole idea of transparency, or you pretend to subscribe to it, when you get into a real situation, you would suppress any of them.
That's correct. They really don't believe in any of those things. They don't believe in any of those things. But the question is, can anything be done about all of this massive corruption that's continuing uninterruptedly? Can anything be done about it?
We were talking about the PPP. The Kaicho News was almost on a
crusade,
campaign and crusade. You're not seeing the same level, and the public. The picture of President Jagdio's 2-acre house property. You're not seeing that same kind of anger. The Gord Mosley and the Enrico Wolford. Suddenly, the Clive Thomases.
Well, they all gone to work in the government, and Rico and Clive, all of them gone to work with the government, so you won't hear from them now. Well, why would you hear from them now?
So is corruption a relative thing? That if it's my party corrupt is okay? So it's Clive Thomas' government is corrupt now, so that's okay.
He wouldn't write about it because he's part of it. He's part of it. He wouldn't write about it. Enrico wouldn't write about corruption. He's inside there.
It's an individual, personal thing.
Yeah.
To what extent you can speak out against Ramin if he is involved in corrupt behavior? And overnight, we decided to become friends. Am I going to still? It's a human something that when the tables are turned, it's a different game altogether.
Should those persons at least be quietly passing notes and saying, look, this thing is reaching a point where I can no longer defend it?
You mean people like Clive Thomas and Enrico?
Yes.
It calls for courage.
Because I guess the benefits they receive from the system now. Yeah.
It really calls for conviction.
So then courage to speak
courage.
out.
Yes. And then to say that I don't want to be part of this thing. Very few of them ever resign and say I don't want to be part of it. Very few of them.
Personal interest, a lot of personal interest.
You don't get
it. We've never had that kind of resignation. We had resignation in your days.
I resigned.
I
resigned.
Your people, the Chandy Singh and the various people from the PPP who resigned. But they resigned for political reasons.
No, they resigned from the PPP. No, they resigned from the PPP to go to work with the PNC.
That's what I'm saying, yes. They didn't resign over corruption.
No.
And corruption wasn't a big word then.
It wasn't.
No.
Money wasn't flowing, so the corruption wasn't a big issue.
But, sometimes you can say that because money is not flowing, the little that's flowing we got for trying thief. Here it is. You have a government that awarded itself a 50% increase.
That's horrible.
Because we don't want we people to be corrupt.
Yeah, that's correct. They said that at the time.
Yeah, but ministers, politicians decide to become politicians to serve And the overriding consideration is not the compensation.
Not in Guyana. Not in Guyana.
Huh?
Not in Guyana here. This type of politician we have here is a
President
different.
Burnham, President Hoyt, President Cherry Jagan, they were getting salaries significantly
Absolutely.
less than this because the overriding consideration was service and not the compensation.
Though whatever you think of their
Although in the case,
ideological positions.
however, in the case of the PPP, they didn't need to in those days.
Well, Ramin,
They didn't need
you were
to.
part of it, so you would know.
They didn't need
no,
to.
no, but again, I still don't think we should diminish the significance of those things.
No,
They-
I
No,
take
they
a
weren't. They
strong
weren't,
view. I take
they
a
weren't
strong
running
view.
corrupt administration. No, I would say that.
You
Although there
have-
may have been some few isolated cases.
But you have here with corruption becomes part of the system.
System.
From the time you see a tender,
And it's
now
in
you
the-
call
and it-
somebody.
Yes, and it's in the whole country, in every region, every municipality, every ministry, every state-owned agency. It's all over. It's all over. We see it in the simple thing as the exam for driver's license. There 167 people came to write the exam and 200 people got license.
And that's a tip. That's a tip of the iceberg.
Is there in everything there's corruption in the firearm license, in work permits, in everything. Everything there's corruption. Everything here, in all institutions, all agencies. I can't think of a single agency or entity where you could say there isn't. Of course, the worst example I would say is Mayor and City Council of Georgetown.
You know,
You can't beat that. You can't beat that.
I've always held out the Bank of Guyana as a good example of
Cleanliness,
reasonable
reasonable cleanliness.
But they did get involved in this $18 million.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
They got involved in that one.
yes.
Though they were carrying out instructions.
The
The
bank,
letter,
the governor of the bank got to carry the act. He's appointed under the Bank of Guyana Act.
no, which is to serve your customers. And the state is part of your customer.
No,
And if the
his
state
duty
says,
is-
put this money there, you
Yeah.
can't tell him I'm not putting it there.
No, he has.
And I was
he's
on the board and I
governor.
didn't know about that transaction.
Yeah.
Remember? I was on the board at that time. And
So you mean your governor did not alert
No.
the board?
no.
That's interesting.
Did you know about
Did you-
the problem
did you-
with Gold Board money and why the other director resigned? The other lawyer director? The
Which
problem
one?
with the Gold Board
Which law director was on the board?
that
You know,
resigned? Vijayan, why he resigned over the Gold Board
And you know,
calamity?
let me say this. I'm sometimes approached by persons, and I've been approached by one particular person who said, Chris, if you think that you're reading about all the corruption that takes place, it's probably less than 10%. It's, in other words, it's
10 times more. Yeah, that's correct, yes. It's 10 times more than what you're reading about. Absolutely. It's 10 times more. But the question is, I want to put to you, what can be done about it? Can anything be done about it?
If
Put
you
an end
notice-
to it.
If you notice, the operator just
Yeah,
did that
yeah.
one. We'll have
What
to.
could be done about it?
We'll have to talk of that. How long are you here for, Anand?
I'm leaving Monday.
Ah, shucks.
What can be done about
Anyway,
it?
Anand, great to see you again.
I miss this country, but again, I'm off.
Yeah. You don't want to live here.
Operators and viewers,
yeah.
I had a,
thank you and good night.
I had
See
surgery.
you next week.
Like, you know,